you. So it's really nice to be up in the podium. Anybody that knows me, the last month has been a little difficult for me because my mother passed away. And I just came back from Puerto Rico. And so it's been really challenging, and so it feels really good right now to be amongst my peers. And I thank Gail so much for contacting me and encouraging me to do this event, so I really appreciate it. I am a poet and I am a writer, and I right now am working on a poetic memoir. And it's kind of like a hybrid situation. At one point, I used to say, well, I want to do a poetry book, and another moment I said I wanted to do a memoir. But of recently, I have been finding myself writing quite a bit about my life through the use of poetry, using poetry to do that, to express who I am as a person. And I've been mining my experiences, and they've been coming up in a poetry way. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read to you pieces of prose that I have written for my memoir. But at the same time, I'm going to be reading to you poetry about my life, my personal life, my childhood, but also about my family, about my politics, and my beliefs. And so I hope you enjoy this. I'm going to start out, and I'm going to also do a little bit of trigger warnings because this is about my childhood experience, which hasn't always been so easy. The first piece I'm going to read is called Little Girl. Little girl, where are you from? I'm from a different way than just yonder. Little girl, where are your mother and father? Mommy's in the kitchen cooking and crying over the stove. Daddy's in the pool hall shooting up. Little girl, do you have family that can help you out? Abuela's sweating la gota gorda at the factory. Titi lives down the block from us, but Mom doesn't want to let him go. She was in a dark place with no money, food, 2 kids, a broken toilet, mice and cockroaches, which destroyed her soul. Little girl, what are you to do? Put on my walking shoes, walk to the church nearby, grab a rosary and some holy water, sit in the pew, pray for her soul and mine. Little girl, what if God doesn't hear you? In the world where I am from, little girls believe in the possible despite all of the horrible things going on. The noise behind closed doors when mommy and dad are not home, knocking on neighbors' doors, asking for sugar when there was nothing else, playing jumping jacks on the sidewalk barefoot trying to stop the hunger from taking hold, staring at Hostess cupcakes at the corner store, at the bodega, hoping the white man will be generous. Missing school the first week because there's no money for the laundromat or new clothes. Stomping on the cockroach that came out of my book bag, eyes wide open, disheveled and bold. Daddy showed up again at the schoolyard, wondering where we had gone. Falling through the cracks is no easy task. It takes many to ignore the obvious. If you really want to know what is going on, it is the story of a little girl who was trying to make it on her own and a mommy who couldn't take it anymore. The next one is called Doors. First, because I was poor. Then because I'm Puerto Rican. I have found that doors have always been closed to me. I remember having to open and close doors in my life many times, especially when I was a young girl. My family moved around all the time in New York City. It seemed to me we were in a new place or a different room, an apartment, or even staying in a convent every few months. Once we even moved to Puerto Rico to live with my abuela Esperanza, only to return about a year later to live again with my father. My mom and dad broke up, got back together, and broke up one more time. Many more doors opened and closed for us after this, not because of repentance, My mother was not sorry about moving back and forth. It didn't take her long to leave us alone with Dad. She left to be with Andre, a man with a big afro whom she met in Puerto Rico. He came after her in the Bronx. This time my mother chose not to return with him to Puerto Rico. She decided she was going to live in New York, but this time without my father. She closed the door she had left open. Daddy was never home when we lived with him in the tiny apartment without a bathroom. I remember the front door being closed and locked every night when he left for work. Or so we thought. One day, me and my little brother Alfie decided to jump out the window to explore the world. First, we jumped onto the ledge and then the sidewalk. I was 7 years old, and my brother was 6. Alfie was my shadow. I remember us romping around together all day long. We were looking for doors to open, and we couldn't find them anywhere. So we went ahead and knocked on doors because we were hungry. At times when a door did open, we found nice people who gave us food. Other times there were other kids to play with. Many times we came home with toys and books. The first book given to me was by a total stranger. It was the book 101 Dalmatians. It was about a mean, rich white woman who had many white dogs with black spots. I always wanted to have a dog and a mother and a father at home to play with. I also remember that Alfie and I, playing outside all day long, did not last very long. One hot summer day, my father came home early to celebrate my 8th birthday, and to his surprise, we were playing outside. I can't say fast enough how this door was closed very quickly without any talk. He was carrying gifts I had never received. We were sent to live with our aunt and uncle in Long Island. We now had to open and close doors in the basement of a big white house without even wanting to be there. After a year of crying that I wanted to go home, Mommy finally did return. This was when we moved into our new apartment with her and Andre in the South Bronx. It was across the street from our Titi Lydia. I liked Titi Lydia. She was silly, told jokes, and smiled all the time. I was not convinced about the new move with Andre, however. At first, I was not sure our new place was any better. We were stuck in the house all the time and bored. In Long Island, we were locked in the basement only until Uncle George got home or when we were not in school. The front door to our new building had a lock on it. I couldn't tell if Mom was afraid to let us out or if that was just the way things were. After some time living in our new spot, she brought us to the public library. I was in my glory. I remember the first book I ever checked out, and I could not stop reading it. It was about Harriet Tubman. I was fascinated to read about a woman who did not stop trying to free others when she herself was being forced to leave her home. I also remember waking up to the possibilities of my own dreams after reading about her story and how she was treated in the past. It was then that a door opened up for me that would never be closed. The truth is, reading books liberated me. It was books that made me understand that another world was possible. It is the door that opened to me and my life. I'm going to read this one called Your Peeping is No Witness. I think I'm going to go on from that one to Tomboy. So this one was actually published at the Hampshire Gazette. And what I like to think about this one a little bit is my joke has always been that I'm going to be famous like Emily Dickinson, after the fact, after she passes away, because for me, I was just very hesitant about publishing. And so I usually write for my own self-pleasure, and it's only been recent that I've been really putting my stuff out there. So this is Tomboy, and it goes like this. Take me out to the ballpark was all about playing stickball on the street in between passing cars with boys on the block. It was yelling at those ugly faces again, hold my place, while running back upstairs to the apartment so that I can pee, then back down across the street before my turn and the next home run. It meant the boys screaming, "Go away, you can't play, you're a girl." But I was whip as they come and said, "Go tell it to your mama if you don't want me to beat you up." That usually did it until I stole first base one more time and the brutes accused me of cheating. My fist always clenched by my side, ready to give anyone some lumps. The girls always wondered why I wanted to play with boys instead of jumping rope. Double Dutch was my thing, but I liked much more beating the boys at their game because I wasn't supposed to. Especially wearing white cloth skippy sneakers instead of Pumas or Adidas the way you were supposed to. My long pigtails gave me strength that was unheard of. At night, I imagined myself like Pippi Longstocking with strong arms, lifting boys instead of horses, waving my fist at them, scaring them away if they tried to. The moon was filled with dings from the balls I hit up there with my big anything-is-possible stick. The balls didn't come back down, you know, just made the moon wink, smile, and say, "I got you." The next one I think I'm going to do is my favorite abuela. And as I had mentioned earlier, I had gone to Puerto Rico this past week, and one of the reasons was that I felt like I needed a reset in my life, and I was kind of trying to connect with my mother's spirit and my grandmother's spirit, and I went to this local beach, which I grew up at as a young girl, to find out that it had been occupied by the U.S. Marines, and they had blocked off the beach. And so I had to drive a little bit, like 2 miles up to get to the same beach, which is considered part of the Costa Azul, the Blue Coast. And I did get to sit on the beach and contemplate. The beach is my happy place, right? So this is something that I wrote while I was at the beach. Let's see if I find it. Excuse me just a minute. Oh, here we go. It's not coming up for some reason. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay. When my favorite abuela retired from working many years in the factories of the United States, she built a cement house in the campo near the beach in Arroyo, Puerto Rico. The house was very small and didn't have much space at all. It had a small living room, a wooden kitchen that looked like a closet, a bathroom, and a bedroom that didn't fit very much. I honestly didn't expect this for the first time I saw the casita, but for my grandmother, my abuelita, it was good enough for her because she was in Puerto Rico. The truth is, it was her everything. In less than 10 minutes, she arrived at the beach walking and found herself at a beach lined with coconut palms, white sands with many shells, colorful rocks, and crystal blue water. The beach was my abuela's refuge. The sound of the waves was a lullaby to her, and the view was spectacular. The view was spectacular, especially when the sun went down. It was her happy place. The beach gave my abuela Esperanza hope of what could be, and she walked there 2 or 3 times a week not to forget. After realizing that the American dream was a fantasy, she didn't want to be anywhere else, although she felt very alone. Her children, Johnny and Sylvia, made their lives in the United States, and she hardly saw them. Sitting on the beach contemplating her life, she would never have thought that one day the American military would occupy her favorite beach, which gave her years of her life, believing the best for her family and her casita. Her casita disappeared with the American military landing in her pueblo. Arriving at her favorite beach, the hope that her family would someday live in her house, her dreams disappeared. The casita no longer exists. She would not wish it on anyone to live there now, even in heaven. The next one I'm going to do is actually one that I wrote some time ago. And I think it's because the day that our new president came in and we started seeing a lot of things go on was just very disturbing to me. Being in my home, I started hearing a lot of military planes go by. And I noticed that insurgents started to happen more so when Trump came in. So I call this jet in the sky. It has been some time since I heard you. Now it seems like I hear and see you every day. I wonder if you're on high alert. Is it because of the way our country is free to hurt? Tanks, guns, missiles, drones, oh my. Where do they all go, below the dirt or beneath the sky? Jet in the sky, louder and louder I hear you, closer and closer I see you. Why do you make all the children cry? Mommy and Daddy are no longer with us. Do you know why? People all over the world are waiting for the day America bows down for their country to rise. I'm going to do, I have just a few more, and they're smaller ones. And I wanted to plug in some small poems. And the reason is because I took a workshop with Gail Thomas a couple years ago, and she taught me how to love short poems. I remember at that time I was feeling a little like, oh my goodness, if I want to get published, I have to do bigger poems. I don't know if you monitor publishing and submit your stuff in publishing, but usually what's winning the big money these days is very long poems. And so when I did Gail Thomas's class and workshop, I was very excited because she's a big fan of short poems. And so I enjoyed that. So I'm going to do a couple of short poems. One of them I call Poetic Dissonance. It's Poetic Dissonance. Dreaming of you on a starry night, with angel wings clipped behind my back and out of sight. I am suspended between hope and darkness, falling off a ledge in the silence of the night, into an abyss with no end. In the free fall, I whisper prayers, hoping for a miracle, longing for your return as the world crumbles beneath me. The night we both said yes, our arms embraced a haze of shared breath, our laughter echoed in the mist, desire pulse panting, chanting, while time melted away. Until it happened again, the gut punch of absence, the shattered gasp of air, even indifferent, you shone with a madness untouched by care. The boundary between no and yes is razor thin, words balanced upon the edge of what was and what could be. Whisper sweet nothings to me as you once did, letting our memory linger in the air. If you must go, do so, but know my heart still aches for us, a wish for a reimagined world. And I'm going to do this, I know for sure, thinking again about some of my history and how I feel as a Boricua, as a Latina. I need to get that in there, okay? This much I know for sure. I wake up to the sun and go to sleep with the moon and the stars. I'm a tropical girl. I prefer the beach and ocean breezes to pine trees and deep freezes. If I had my choice, I'd wake up in San Juan in a hammock under a coconut palm. I'd go to sleep every day with chirping coquis and the stars and moonlight shining down on me. The sweet dream of a free Puerto Rico would keep me in a deep sleep until it became a reality. This I know for sure. When I wake up, my country would no longer be a colony. It would be independent and free. My people would be crying joyfully for liberty, and the sun would shine on us forever, brightly. Just a few more. And so the three more, and again, they're short. One is Mosaic Stairs, and A Time and A Distant Memory. And these, when I wrote them, I was thinking of my mother. So let's see. Mosaic Stairs. There are bits of you embedded in my life. Shards of broken glass mark my path, each fragment catching the light of memories I cannot leave behind. The burden weighs on me heavily. Many days I cry, uncertain whether to live or fade away, but crystals gleaming pain and hope shimmer inside me day and night. It is unbearable sometimes to breathe or rise, yet I step forward. The broken glass and crystals beneath my feet form the mosaic that lifts me. Each step, a memory, refracted in color, guiding me upward from despair. Mosaic stairs lead me, showing the way toward eternity. Life becomes colorful only when we choose to walk the path that shimmers beyond our sight. And this one here, very quickly, A Time, A Distant Memory, was thinking about my mother and her life and her journey. A time, a distant memory. She gazed through the peephole of her door, suddenly consumed by a flicker of memories. A sweet smile, perfumed scents, a flower in her hair, crisp shirt, flowing dress, holding hands, frolicking in the rain, laughter, tears of joy. Remembering all that hurts, a car passing by. She thought about how quickly the days pass, as fast as those who come and go, those who were near and dear. She wondered where her old loves had gone. Did they ever think of her when they were alone? A knock at the door, a sudden smile. Could you tell me one more time about our love before the door closes? She asked softly, her words barely more than a breath. He answered, voice warm and sincere. You know, I do love you. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known. The small window to show her love, the love that never lasts. She asked gently, closing the door. Did you see me when you looked at last? Knock, knock. What did you say again? This time locking the door to her heart. Please don't repeat yourself. And the last one I'm going to call The Pearl. And it's very, very brief. Here it goes. The pearl, in the palm of my hand, strung in multiple strands, milky, creamy, soft, and smooth. Is there a pearl that is free of color? Each layer, born from a wound, holds a secret. Resilience shaped by pain, growing strong and lustrous in the dark, a mirror to the quiet battles within me. Layers forming, nicked and bruised, indentations misconstrued. Real or fake? Is there a perfect pearl? Thank you.
Thanks, Darlene. It was so good to hear your work. You're a very good reader.
And you're a very good mentor.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. I'm going to read from a few of my books and also some new work. So I want to start with a poem that's a French poem, a French form called an aubade. And that means simply in either music or writing, something that honors the dawn or the morning. And I'm going to read this because it reflects the season that we're getting into. Aubade, between seasons. Suddenly, the hummingbirds battling over a red blossom disappear, replaced by goldfinch swaying on bent necks of late sunflowers. Ravished seed heads spear through mist. Dawn drags its feet. Sun retreats to its far corner, scent of earth and rot, green tomatoes that lost their bid to ripen. One last morning glory opens. One bloody leaf splays the fading lawn. Raucous jays set off alarms, wind chimes in counterpoint. Orange and yellow marigold jewels, still unfrozen, wait to drape ofrendas on Dia de Muertos. Skin, hair, lips, and teeth of long-gone lovers call out. Desire, like a low flame, simmers before first frost's kiss. And here's some new things. It's another September poem. I wrote this last September, and sadly, things haven't changed much since last September. Horseneck Beach in September. Walking under a murmuration, the whoosh of 1,000 wings, dune grass shimmers silver, waves sing the ancient song of come and return. Beneath it all, the undertow cries Gaza, Sudan, Ukraine, Appalachia, foams up with the surf. Suffering is not a postcard. Waving stalks shoot silver bullets. The flock of turning birds, a siege. Gunmen climb the goldenrod. How do we live with the luxury of living, of going home? And the next one is inspired by my work with immigrants and refugees here in our towns. Studying for the citizenship test with wildfires. The sky chokes on smoke, snaking its way from Canada to our hills that hide 100 words for green, now dulled and hazed to fewer shades, just as we are, to fear and anger only. Z practices for the test. Rule of law, checks and balances, powers of the president. Smoke obscures the answers as I struggle to explain democracy, at least the ideal behind this scrim. She weighs her choices, to appear at the appointed day and time and risk the masked men, or slip back into the shadows, not unlike the day she fled terror by boarding the last plane to this vague kind of freedom. I find it very hard to do this work right now, but it has to be done. Without you, let your screen grow dark, silence your phone, hide your to-do list, cancel your plans, and walk to the edge of the gorge. Move your eyes slowly down rock walls furred with moss and glowing emerald ferns. Plant your feet and focus on the rushing river as it swirls and eddies, the way it reaches back on itself but still foams forward. Never mind the old voices or tomorrow in this stopwatch moment. Pay attention to movement, stillness, and balance. Listen to a catbird mimic water, the shrill of a red-tailed hawk. Watch for the silken robe of trout, the float of storm-loosened limbs. Unclench your jaw. See how everything goes on without you. Okay, I'm going to read one poem from this book, Odd Mercy. This is a chapbook that I wrote about, centered around the relationship with my mother, which was very difficult, and her slide into Alzheimer's, which we reversed roles, and oddly enough, there was a blessing in that. We became close for the first time. So I'm going to just read the very first opening poem in this, which is it's called a garland of cinquains, and a cinquain is another French form, and this is a form that has 5 lines, 5 lines, 5 lines, 5 lines, and each line has to be a certain amount of syllables. So the syllable count goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, back to 2 again. And then the last stanza takes lines from the previous stanzas and incorporates them into the end. So it becomes a chant. A daughter's garland. Mother, the dance reversed. Spoon to mouth, shoes to feet, kisses aloud, even love words. Who's there? Mother, each day the same, in this place of hallways, kind strangers take my place. You say thank you. Mother, we can rest now with no expectations. The one you never knew is here with you. Mother, I stroke your arm, play your favorite songs. Your eyes are tidal, ebb and flow. Hold on. Mother, an odd mercy rains down on our gray heads, empty of memory and full at once. Mother, an odd mercy with no expectations. Your eyes are tidal, ebb and flow. Thank you. And I read 4 poems from this book, Waving Back, and go to the one about my mother to one about my father. Let's see. And this poem begins with a quote from the writer Cormac McCarthy, and the quote is, "The blood of multitudes might ultimately be exacted for the vision of a single flower." It's called Last Day. I don't know about the blood of multitudes, except for images of Wounded Knee, Rwanda, Dachau. But I did stand over my father in an ambulance on his last day. He couldn't speak or meet my eyes, the sergeant who walked through a world war, on whose chest I lay my hand, the world's heart beating at some terrible cost, into whose ear I whispered, "Sea Tiger," the boat that would carry him across to a coal-dusted garden. The funeral director's daughter. Jars of ash from each she's loved by choice or blood wait on a shelf. Most were sprinkled over water or under roots, a pinch held back to mingle with her own Missouri grit when the time comes. She watched her father drape his arm around shaking shoulders of strangers, avert his eyes at delicate moments, hold steady when the waves subsided. More than honor and custom, she learned to decorate graves on holidays, search for kin in country towns with overgrown mounds, to do what must be done. She will wait by your bedside until dawn breaks, until the last ragged breath whispers, "Yes, yes, I am ready." And I'm going to read this one because I like to read it because it has sounds that are really great mouthfuls. So if I can read it without stumbling, that would be really good. It is a pantoum, which is a form, again, which has repeating lines in a certain order. So you'll hear certain lines repeated throughout the poem, which gives it this sort of rolling feeling. And I'm going to dedicate this poem to the late poet Margaret Robeson. Learning to walk again. The river outside her window keeps moving as she walks the 6 steps along the kitchen counter, back and forth, big silver earrings flash like fish, right hand grips the rail, eyes hold on to brown water. As she walks the 6 steps along the kitchen counter, the room pulses with postcards from Oaxaca. Right hand grips the rail, eyes hold on to brown water. Mexico shimmers orange and blue across small walls. The room pulses with postcards from Oaxaca. Hibiscus shawl spills over the wheelchair. Mexico shimmers orange and blue across small walls. She begins to take her first long shower in 2 years. Hibiscus shawl spills over the wheelchair. Thick-stemmed amaryllis pushes up from its clay pot. She begins to take her first long shower in 2 years. How the water pounds down on her shoulders. Thick-stemmed amaryllis pushes up from its clay pot, stronger than any sex, the luxurious waste of water. How the water pounds down on her shoulders, coursing down both arms, both legs, both feet, stronger than any sex, the luxurious waste of water, back and forth, big silver earrings flash like fish, coursing down both arms, both legs, both feet. The river outside her window keeps moving. And for a little levity, change of pace, it's really hard to write poems that are funny. I really admire poets who can do that, and there are some wonderful poets who do that, like Billy Collins and a few others. So this poem comes from a time in my past when I was giving writing workshops in hospitals. It's called Haiku Therapy. After his wife died, the counselor recommended grief therapy, where he learned to write haiku. In the apartment, with radio blaring, he counted syllables. Cherry blossoms die. Everything has turned to shit. I don't give a damn. His daughter was glad he was taking an interest in something. His teacher said to keep writing. Seasons are for fools. You can't count on anything. The dumb sun rises. And this poem is for those of you who have aging parents or who have dealt with that situation. It's called Giving Up the Keys. Until he was almost blind, my father wouldn't do it. Driving home at night, he pulled over for who knows how long, my mother said, until he could see. She, who peppered the house with Post-it notes, was losing her memory. but she cued him from the passenger seat when the light changed. Until we haggled for months, he asked her to drive, his impatient keys cradled in a glass bowl, until the day in the driveway when she froze, mascaraed eyes focused on the strangeness of dials and tiny letters. She whispered, "I don't remember how to start the car." He told me over the phone, "It's all right, she doesn't go far." That night, I dreamt of my young lover who kept driving her red truck after brain surgery until a seizure propelled the truck into a yellow crosswalk. She killed a man in a blue shirt, and her dog's back legs were paralyzed. From 300 miles away, I drove to ask their doctor to file a report, avert a tragedy. No luck. Until I buried my mother's keys in my bag. At home, I imagined how she would scour each room until she forgot what she was looking for. And this poem is called The Crossing. In the spring of my daughter's 10th year, she studied spotted salamanders, how with the first warm rain they crossed a busy road at night, propelled by magnetic and chemical signals to find their birth pool, a half-mile from the pile of rotted leaves and bark where they slept, not stopping at other ponds until they reached home waters. She designed a sign to warn cars, and a tunnel was built under the road that spring after spring was plastered with flattened bodies like ink blots. By then, her father had stopped calling, and a lawyer tried to extract monthly payments. I applied for fuel assistance when our wood ran out. In another state, his next wife delivered their baby. My daughter wanted to visit. She wore a mask and held a swaddled infant introduced as her sister before returning to our cottage, where we bundled in coats like stranded travelers while cold drafts whistled through the walls. After laying eggs in her natal pond, the mother salamander returns to the woods alone. When her young can survive, they leave to mature for 4 or 5 years before they attempt the unmapped migration. One spring night in my daughter's 18th year, the phone startled me awake. An accident. The car totaled, but saved from tumbling down a bridge embankment. My daughter and friends shaken but uninjured. Spotted salamanders navigate the annual journey for 18 years, but only if they traverse that road in 88 seconds. 18 years of predators, drought, freeze, the eager hands of children, but only if they survive the crossing. Just a few more. This is a found poem, which means that you look in the newspaper or a magazine or a billboard for some text that moves you, and then you use that text and rearrange it to make a poem. So all of the text is from a magazine, but rearranged in this way. And the title is Reading House Beautiful in the Immigration Office. A truly great room should make you think, I never want to leave. It's very important that your eye is constantly captivated. When you're given a dark space, create your own light. Embrace mixed metals. Don't be afraid to use inherited antiques. Encourage guests to float through the room while engaged in conversation. Choosing the right light bulb is very important. Use wallpaper in mundane spaces. Every house should have a great bar. A wicker animal brings a sense of whimsy. Areas of transition can be places you enjoy spending time in. Old and new belong together. Never take anyone's advice. No, that was a spread. That was probably a 10 or 12-page full-color spread in House Beautiful with all those little tips. Yeah, okay. And I'm sorry I'm reading such serious poems, but that's how I feel in the world right now. So this is another form. It's an ancient Persian form called a ghazal, and this is a form that uses two lines repeated, and then the last phrase in each second line is repeated again. And the late Aga Shahid Ali, who taught at UMass, was the master of ghazals. American ghazal. Innocence dies in every season. Bullets spray in America. Red blossoms swirl and drip night and day in America. Prayers don't erase the names waiting to be spoken. How many voices stilled? Money betrays in America. School, church, temple, mosque, theater, mall, club. False gods, assault weapons stay in America. Oh, he was a hater, loner, misfit, bully. Rage hides in plain sight, decay in America. Abraham, faith-blind father, God saved your son. We know the enemy within, but we pray in America. Okay. And I'm going to end with this poem. It's the longest poem. And this is a poem that I would invite you to just kind of take a walk with me in the woods, and that's what this poem does. So I'm taking a walk in the woods, but as you know, sometimes when you're walking, especially in a nice, quiet place, there's a lot of thoughts that invade your consciousness. So the walk is interrupted at various points. It's called Trail of Roots. After I forget what I know about walking, I hike this trail with my dog who is thrilled to be free. This is not a time for Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, where one walks untethered, although a slice of sky above the canopy stares like the milky blue eye of a newborn. My eyes focus only on feet, what lies beneath and ahead. Tangled web of roots course like bruised veins at every angle. Matted leaves layer 1,000 years of dead news, punctured by scarlet mushrooms and waist-high wings of ferns. In China, children are wearing brightly painted butterfly wings to keep 6 feet of distance in school. What bird is making that sawing noise, or maybe a porcupine above, ready to drop a gnawed branch for its young? I remember years when I used my body and skin to feed my children, denied by their father as if we lived in a blind alley built of unpaid bills. Now I follow the blue blaze on the next tree, lift a low-hanging branch before it slaps my face, then an uphill stretch and downhill tumble of pebbles, move up and down until calves and toes cramp, and I stumble. When we walked home from a pride march, I pushed a stroller and held my other child's hand while red-faced men screamed at us. Later, in our garden, a neighbor spit on the ground, the thick clot daring me to protect them. And here, a bridge of boards spread across shallow water where the dog's desire to tramp in black muck is met. An orange newt skitters over a decaying stump, home for larvae and beetles. Sweating, I tear a wide frond of fern to swat gnats that swarm like the bullies who taunted on the school bus. Your dyke's just like your mother. The lovers who came and left like borers leave sawdust around my heart. Blocking the path, a storm-struck white pine stretches like a corpse. I hoist myself over its rough bulk, balance, then straddle before landing on solid ground. Flecks of pine wings rain down, souls of dark-skinned boys, child soldiers, girl brides, babies lost at the border, unmasked and innocent. The dog bounds back to check on me, then runs ahead, nose to the ground, on the scent of something I cannot see. Thank you very much. I think now we're going to be queens and sit back here in the comfy chairs. Want to turn that off? Okay.
If at any point there are questions, the Q&A at the end, raise your hand. I will bring you the microphone so our folks watching the live stream at home can hear your questions.
Hello? Check.
Is it on?
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine. So what should we talk about, Darlene?
Hi, Gail. How are you? Let's say hi first. I don't know. I know that personally, I just wanted to say that I started writing very seriously during the pandemic. And at that time, I started taking workshops. And I just couldn't take enough workshops, poetry, just regular generative workshops. And one of the things that I want to encourage everybody to do is, if you can, take a poetry workshop with Gail. One of the things that I really enjoyed about her workshop was that it wasn't about structure, like you have to do this and do that and write a certain way. She would actually have you read samples of really good poetry and writing, and you would analyze that, and you would get good ideas from that. And so I felt very inspired by that, and so I've always been drawn to Gail as a poet, and I think that it's important for us to be inspired from each other. Even, it's not always about, let me read Emily Dickinson or Mary Oliver, we need to be inspired by one another. So thank you for inspiring me.
Thank you, Darlene. And I obviously was inspired by you, by your passion and your forthrightness and your kind of decision to write, later in life and just really get serious. And I felt that that's where you were, and you were headed toward a lot of good possibilities. And after hearing you read, I can tell that that's where you're headed. And I'm inspired by my students all the time. I mean, I'm a lifelong teacher. I was a high school teacher, and then community college, and then Smith College, and now teaching poetry, which is what I loved. And I just think it's so important to be open to everything and everyone that you meet. And that's where I get a lot of my inspiration, is from other people and animals and nature. Conversations, just little blips here and there in passing that might seem just insignificant, but they find their way into your writing. And I want to say that, Darlene, there's so many images that stand out for me in what you read tonight, in the Doors piece in particular. And I mean, I see you and your brother climbing out that window and getting yourself down to the street and knocking on doors. And you have a way of, your prose pieces, you have a way of feeling very conversational, like you're just standing next to me telling me a story. There's no distance. There's no artifice when you read your writing, and so many details.
They're all true stories. And I found very quickly from my writing that my favorite is prose. And, I was reading through a lot of different kind of poetry, and I love prose poems because there's not much of a structure to prose poems. It feels like a free-flow conversation, and you can just include whatever in it, And I don't think they take much revision, and so when I'm feeling the moment, whatever it may be, whatever I'm inspired by, it could be waking up in the morning and listening to I call her Rosie, my morning dove in the morning that wakes us up. She's already flown south, though. It could be that, having, the sunrise, coffee, and listening to my morning dove in the morning. Or it could be something that I've seen or heard or I've observed. So I just like the fact that I can just write it down and feel free to say what I want and be vulnerable at the same time. And so I enjoyed that. And then I'm trying to experiment a little bit with that, doing prose poetry, prose pieces, and write about my life. And there's so much material. I want to I was telling Gail that I want to get my memoir out as soon as possible. And she's like, no, take your time, because you want to make sure that you get something really good down. I'm very also interested in writing a novel, a true story based on the life of my mother, who's a very interesting character. And the struggles that she went through in life, and it's kind of parallel to, it's a good feel-good story. It's not a story of hate or anger. It's a story of resilience, of love, of family, and transformation and healing. So I want to get through that as well. So there's so much I want to do, actually. There's so much writing I want to do, Gail.
That's
I
great.
don't know if I can get to it all.
You can do it. You're a young thing. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Mike, I have a question. I think you sort of answered it, but is there a difference between a really short story and a poem? You said when you write prose, seems to me was the snippet is a short story. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I don't see a big significant difference. I mean, when I'm writing a poem, a prose poem, I think of things like assonance, repetitiveness, ideas, patterns kind of thing. And it seems more imaginative to me. Like when I'm writing poetry, I'm bringing it to another level. I'm kind of like transcending. There's a level of transcendence there where I'm just kind of thinking of things that can be, or maybe desires in my life, like the piece that I said, Poetic Dissonance, a reimagined world, right? So I use poetry to kind of reimagine my life, or maybe imagine like the poem about my grandmother, where I was sitting actually on the beach, surrounded by palm trees, thinking about what my grandmother would be saying, because she's no longer alive, she's in heaven, right? And so sometimes it's kind of taking yourself out of your daily routine of who you are and feeling inspired, or imagining yourself in the place of others, or what others would say or think, whether it's a person, whether it's an object, or even your wishes or desires that may come through.
The thing about poems, though, is that poems have a lot of concentrated word use, and there's an emphasis on each word. You can't get away from that in prose. You can you can embroider things and you can use words that perhaps, like in poetry, you try to stay away from those abstractions. You try to use imagery and sound and repetition, which you can do in prose, but I think like a really good prose poem has all the qualities of poetry. The writer isn't just, kind of going on and on. The writer is attending to the qualities of poetry, making sure there's imagery and sensory images and sound, and because that's what poetry does. And I feel that poetry also, the kind of poetry that I read and that I really enjoy is the poetry that taps me emotionally. I don't want to see like somebody showing off their use of language and linguistics and making references to Plato. You can have a reference to Plato, but I want to, after I read a poem, I want to be like, whoa, that got me, or I really feel that. I feel something in that poem that grabs me, and I think that's what poetry can do and what it's meant to do, as opposed to, I can pull out images and things that you wrote in your prose, but you weren't staying with that. You went on to the next thing.
Right.
So if you were going to write a whole poem about you and your brother going out on that roof, it would be different. There'd be more, more detail, more specific, So I write prose poems too sometimes. They can be fun.
It's kind of like the mosaic stairs one, right? There was a metaphor that was used, throughout from the beginning to the end, right? And the prose pieces that I write about that I'm trying to use in my memoir, it's almost kind of like storytelling a little bit. So there is a difference. But there's always an opening and a landing, right? You just don't go on and on and on and on. That you try to bring it to a place where people understand it and say, And I heard that a lot today, by the way, with both Gail and myself. Like you got there, which is really important.
I just want Darlene to say something about the group that she just started. Or maybe a year ago?
Yeah.
Or
It's been about a year, and we have some of the writing sisters here. We have Christine Dutton here, Mari Vicente, and Q that you already met. And we're about 15 of us. 3 of us started the group, I would say in April. We've been talking about it for some time. Myself and Gri were talking about it because we felt, when I started writing more and more through the pandemic, I was taking a lot of workshops, and what I found was there was a lack of diversity, to be honest with you. Whether it was with Straw Dog Writers Guild, whether it was with the Pioneer Valley Writing Center workshop, or other ones in the area. And so one of the things that I noticed is that people go in with these good intentions to want to write, right, because they love writing, but then would get discouraged and back out a little bit because perhaps they weren't identifying with the people that they were writing with. And there was kind of a lack of cultural understanding, no matter what the reason is. So the group is BIPOC and LGBTQ, and we had made it a requirement, actually. You can't be part of our group unless you're BIPOC and LGBTQ. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to create a safe space for ourselves to write. And we meet twice a month in person, virtually, and we also collaborate in the community. We do events in the community and take leads on facilitating workshops and facilitating projects, which is really important. We're always recruiting. We meet at the Holyoke Arts League, the Gilded Brick, they're our sponsor. And we meet there once a month, and then we meet on Zoom. And sometimes we meet additionally on Zoom if there's a need. I never thought that we were going to do something like that, but the minute it started, it kind of like started flying, It was so inspirational. We started getting a lot of people on, a lot of people a lot of the women who come, and we're all women, by the way, in addition. So it's not only BIPOC and LGBTQ, but we're women, so it's only women. And people come in motivated, feeling good, sharing, and we make room for being vulnerable with each other. We don't judge. We've become friends as well. We support each other. We have this group, we have this app, this thread, WhatsApp. We're always communicating with each other on the thread, supporting each other, resources, loving and supporting one another. I mean, I can't ask for a better dynamic, to be honest with you. And what I wish more, Gail, is that more people, more women would really be part of the group. Sometimes, especially in this day and age, we lack community. There's no community sometimes, even though, there is writers in Western Massachusetts, but a community that's actually there that supports each other. There's not much of that in the area.
Great. I'm glad you're doing that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have actually a question for each of you. And Darlene, I was really struck by the Tomboy poem and just the energy that you presented of really wanting that, and that you were so beating boys at their own game was what you wanted to do. And then there was sort of like this aside somewhere in there about I'm really good at double dutch.
Yeah.
And I had a question about whether that came in later, that line, or did it just kind of flow like that?
Here I'm going to give some credit to my writing sister Q, who's here. She was the one who let us know about this poetry competition, National Baseball Poetry Competition. And so I said, I'm going to try that. Why not, right? And the funny thing about that poem is it didn't take me not even 20 minutes, half an hour to write. And I didn't even put much revision into it either, because what I did was I wrote from the heart. I wrote about an experience that I had, and everything about it is really true, including Pippi Longstocking being my hero. And again, that's the way I dealt and coped in my life, is by reading, because I hardly went out in the Bronx. There was a part of my life where we were stuck in the house all the time. And so I always transcended into another world. When we moved to Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, I was the best double dutch player there was. I jumped rope like crazy. So much so that I brought that back when we moved here from New York City. I miss a lot of those games, actually, from New York City, those street games, playing in the fire hydrants, playing skellies, kickball, green light, red light. We had a game called hot peas and butter and run, catch, and kiss. These are all things that I really miss and that I want to write about in my memoir. The life that I lived as a child, the life that my mother lived, my ancestors, grandparents from New York City as immigrants, is really unique. And it's one that I want to write about often, and which I plan to do in my memoir. And so, it brings great memories. And I do it with passion and compassion. You know why? Not only because I feel it, but I've already done that poem several times in public, so I think I got it down a little bit.
Thank you. And Gail, my question for you, you mentioned wanting to feel something when you hear a poem, and I was so struck by your last lines of many of your poems and how powerful they were. for example, of a poem about your mother, imagine she would scour the house until, and this isn't exactly right, but until she forgot what she was looking for when you took the keys. And there were just a lot of really powerful endings. How do we live with the luxury of living, of going home? You know, that one was really powerful, working with the immigrants, boarding the last plane to this vague freedom. So I wondered if you sometimes start with the end, or does it come at the end?
Well, those of you who are writers in the room know that endings are really important. For poetry, especially, the first line and the last line are very important. And it's usually something that, you know, I really, really work on revision so that the ending is, I want a punch at the end. I don't want to like wrap it up and tie it with a bow at the end, and I don't want to tell people what they should feel. I try to, like, if there's a feeling, I try to enact it instead of explain it. And I appreciate your comment, because it takes a lot of work to really, revise. One of the workshops that is probably my most popular one is revision, because it's the one it's really tricky, and it's hard for people to know, like, how do I make this better? I like it the way it is, the way it just came out. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give an extra plug for the Writing Sisters and just talk a little bit about some of the things that I find to be really wonderful about this group that we're in. And one thing that I can say is that we have created a space where we can be really vulnerable and we can be forthright and often share things in our writing that we might not have felt that we could do without the support of our writing sisters. So that's been really wonderful. And also, we are showing up. And so whenever one of us in our group is holding an event, is reading, like right now, we are all compelled to make sure that we're present in that location. And there's been a few events where I think 7 or 8 writing sisters were able to make an appearance based on their schedule. So that's one of the things that I like about being in this group, is that environment that we're creating is something that also creates a commitment among the writers. And we also are supporting in what we're creating. And myself, I have been helping someone with editing of their work, and I'm sure that there's some other folks that in our group that have been doing that as well. So that's not a question, that's just another promo.
Thank you.
Got time for maybe one more question if anyone else has one. Cool. I think that might do it then. Well, thank you, Darlene and Gail, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us and inviting us.
I believe Gail has some books for sale outside, so do stick around and chit-chat for the next few minutes. We hope to see you again next month. Thank you.